What if Anakin Skywalker received a purple Kyber Krystal on Illum? What would the Jedi Council think? Would Anakin turn to the dark side? How would Mace Windu react? Our story begins on Illum, where Anakin is 13 years old. His time had come, the time all Jedi Padawans look forward to, the day he would receive his first Kyber Krystal, and he stood with Obi-Wan at the entrance of the cave, and the Master described what to do, to put his faith in the Force entirely, let it guide him to his chosen crystal, and the correct path will be laid out before him. To attempt to force what is not meant to be will be his undoing. Anakin walked inside. As the light outside vanishes, he was swallowed by a profound, breathtaking blackness. The cold here was not of ice, but of void. Anakin ignited a hand lamp, its beam cutting his path forward. He walked for what felt like hours, his breath fogged in the frozen air, and his senses were stretched thin. He felt nothing. Where is it, he thought, asking himself if he doesn't deserve his Kyber. Is he not strong enough in the Force? You are, a voice whispered back in the marrow of his bones. Anakin froze, commanding the voice to show itself, and from the darkness ahead, a soft, violent light began to pulse. He approached, finding not a natural cavern, but a perfect circular chamber, and in its center, on a pedestal of black rock, floated a Kyber Krystal. It was not blue, not green, yellow, or white. It was a deep, royal purple, throbbing with an inner fire. Anakin heard the voice again, telling him to take the crystal for himself. It could be his destiny, or it could be his undoing. A ripple in the air waved through, as the cave's walls dissolved into visions. To his left, a figure in pristine Jedi robes, a beacon of hope, standing beside Obi-Wan, a blue lightsaber humming. The hero, the prophecy fulfilled. To his right, a figure armored in black, breathing a mechanical rasp, a red blade, scattering shadows with a legion of soldiers kneeling before him. Anakin reached out through the visions, and his fingers closed around the crystal. It was electric. A current shot up around his arm. The connection sealed, and the cave around him collapsed. He covered his head as the light around him expanded, and he turned to see he was back at the entrance. He walked outside to Obi-Wan, who jumped up eagerly to ask Anakin what color he had received. He opened his palm to reveal the purple Kyber Krystal. Obi-Wan's eyes went wide in shock. He couldn't believe it. There was only one other Jedi in the Order who had this, Mace Windu, and he was extremely powerful. He put his hand on Anakin's head and congratulated him that once again he has proved how unique he is. Together, Obi-Wan guides Anakin through building his saber on the way back to Coruscant. Anakin was good at this due to his skill with technology, and he finally inserted the crystal to ignite his rich amethyst purple lightsaber. They returned to Coruscant, and at the council meeting later that day, Obi-Wan reported that Anakin had received a purple Kyber Krystal. The council couldn't believe it, a few of them looking to Master Windu for guidance. Obi-Wan spoke, asking the council what this meant. If maybe this is part of the reason they've always sensed Anakin's future is uncertain. However, Anakin having a purple Kyber Krystal was a big deal to Windu. He told the council Anakin receiving this crystal could be a sign for them to follow. They know Anakin has an innate darkness, but the crystal provides an opportunity for Anakin to control it. Saisi Tin spoke next, telling them that Windu is right. Instead of shying away from the dark side, we can let Anakin use his purple crystal to control his inner darkness and use it for power, as he fears if they don't, one day, his innate darkness could take control of him. Yoda turns to Windu and tells him that he must have private sessions with Anakin to train him, as he will need to understand his crystal and control his innate darkness. And Windu is the only one who could do this. Mace paused. He disliked Skywalker because him being allowed to join the Order at 9 years old while already having attachments was strictly against the Jedi Code, something he believed in wholeheartedly. But he knew Yoda was right. He was the only one who could teach the young Anakin. Their lessons started the following week and would happen once a fortnight. The initial training lessons were silent and under the cold judgment of Master Windu, who had no hint of the warmth or patience that Obi-Wan showed. Windu began by telling Anakin that he holds a purple crystal like himself, and the council believed this signifies a unique relationship with the Force, a potential for balance or susceptibility to imbalance, and together they will test which one it is. Anakin tells Windu he's not afraid of the dark side, but Windu looks at him sternly and tells Anakin that he should be. But fear isn't the tool, understanding it is. His first lesson will not be combat, but rather perception. He tells Anakin to close his eyes and reach out with the Force. Anakin obeyed, and he felt the calm pulsing serenity of the temple, the distant echoes of other Jedi, and the sharp and focused unyielding presence of Mace Windu, like a wall of obsidian in the Force. He tells Windu he feels the light and feels his own presence in the Force, but Windu tells Anakin to go deeper, to not seek the light, but rather the absence of it, to feel the dark, the shadows in the corner, the echo of frustration from a Padawan who trained here an hour ago, the cold neutrality of the walls that have witnessed both triumph and failure. Feel the potential for darkness. Anakin focused and let his guard down in the Force. He opened himself up to emotions. He felt the phantom echo of the slaver's chain on his neck, the helpless terror of watching his mother's receding figure as he left her for the last time, the simmering rage at Darth Maul for killing Qui-Gon, the hatred towards the slavers, at the entire galaxy for allowing such suffering. The purple crystal on his belt seemed to grow warm in response, and he tells Windu that he feels it, that it's in the emotions, in wanting things to be different. It's anger, and it's strong. He expected Windu to berate him for opening up to such emotions, but instead, Windu told him good, to open his eyes. Anakin did, and Windu's expression was unreadable. He tells Anakin he didn't shy away from it. He named his anger, and that is the first step. The dark side is not a beast that can be caged in a pit. That is the Sith's mistake. It is a current in the river of the Force. To deny it is to lie to yourself. To be swept away by it is to drown. His crystal chose him, not because he is purely light, but because he contains this conflict, and their task as owners of purple crystals is not to eliminate dark, but to learn to stand in its presence without being consumed. For the first time, Anakin felt that someone in the Order wasn't asking him to stop feeling his powerful and terrifying emotions. They were asking him to face them, and he felt he resonated more with this teaching than standard Jedi training, and couldn't believe it was coming from the Jedi he knew disliked him, Master Windu. These lessons continued on fortnightly, as Anakin continued his regular training with Obi-Wan, but Kenobi saw a tangible difference in Anakin. He was less hot-headed, was able to control his temper, and started on the journey towards the serenity that any Jedi hoped to achieve. It was as if he had come to terms with the demons of his past, and Obi-Wan knew it was due to his training with Mace. Windu was a relentless and demanding teacher. The contents of their lessons changed. He showed Anakin holocrons of Sith atrocities, not to horror him, but to map the geography of corruption, showing him how a single fear left to fest could rot a pure soul. He taught him to meditate, not on emptiness, but on the precise texture of his own anger, to hold it in his mind and not let it take over. Over time, the training became a confession of sorts, as Windu trained Anakin to confront the root of his dark side emotions. Windu was stern, but not judgmental, as Anakin spoke of Tatooine, not just the slavery, but the fierce loyalty of his mother, the desperation to survive, the code of the streets of Mos Espa, where strength was the only law. One afternoon, after Anakin explained when he cheated in a game of sabacc to pay for his mother's medicine, Windu was silent for a long moment, until he told Anakin that he learned to fight not for glory, but for survival, for someone he loved. He tells Anakin the slums of his own homeworld, Harun Kal, weren't so different, a jungle that would eat the weak, but the lessons it taught him were the same. The council found Mace later than most, and he came to the temple with similar instincts to Anakin, a temper forged in a kill or be killed world, and the Jedi saw it as a flaw to be erased, and Anakin couldn't believe it, and he couldn't imagine the impeccable Master Windu as a rebellious child, and asked him what he did about it. But Windu told him he didn't erase it, he harnessed his emotions and built a discipline around it. The power is still there, but it flows where he directs it. His anger at injustices, his need to protect and know weaknesses, they are powerful fuels, but without a guidance system. A fuel is just an explosion waiting to happen. Through this, both Anakin and Windu had profound changes of thought towards the other. Windu realized how similar he was to Anakin, and no longer blamed him for his troubled past that wasn't his fault, and realized he didn't like him because of how similar he was to him. Years later, when Anakin was 16 and had learned to control his innate darkness, Windu congratulated him. The training was brutal, but he mastered it. However, Windu ignited his blade and told Anakin that now he must use it, as well as the darkness he faces, without failing. He tells Anakin he is ready for Form 7. He is ready for Vapad. He explained the theory, not just channeling one's own dark side, but creating a superconductor loop between opponent and wielder to take their fury, their aggression, and reflect it back while staying anchored in one's own core of light. He tells Anakin, it's like walking the blade's edge. One false step, and you feed the very darkness you seek to defeat. Their first spar was explosive. Anakin Unleashed was a cyclone of power. Every time Anakin's frustration grew, every time he tapped into his well of anger, Windu's blade was there, not just blocking, but siphoning and turning Anakin's own emotional intensity against him. Anakin was thrown back, skidding against the floor, and Windu bellowed that his anger is a crutch. Vapad is not about his own darkness, but about his opponent. Let go of his own anger, and use his instead. Windu attacked with a controlled ferocity, and Anakin felt it. Not just the blows, but the focused will behind them. Anakin stopped fighting his own feelings, and he opened himself as Windu had taught him years before. He felt Windu's aggressive flow, and instead of meeting it with his own, he let it pass through him, through the conduit of his focus and his purple blade, and redirected it. When they finally disengaged, they were both breathing heavily, but Anakin's eyes were clear and not filled with rage. Windu deactivated his blade and told Anakin his crystal has found its wielder. To remember this feeling, this control, this is power without price, and he tells Anakin he's ready to meet his destiny. Together they continued training Vapad for a few months until Anakin had completely mastered the technique. A few years later, the Clone War erupted around the galaxy. He was sent to protect Senator Padme Amidala, where the two fell in love and got married just after the war started. However, the marriage was different this time, as Anakin had learned to control his fear surrounding Padme, and in a weird sense was able to power his Vapad through this. Because of Anakin's Vapad and control of his inner darkness, Palpatine was unable to manipulate Anakin. He was mentally strong and not easily manipulated. Windu had made sure of that, as his training with Mace was stronger than Palpatine's persuasion. Skywalker was ruthless in the war. He was insanely powerful and only built his strength battle after battle. His power grew past that of the original timeline, and he was quickly known as the hero with no fear, and the Jedi in the Order knew that Anakin was the strongest of them all. Palpatine was worried because of this. He knew he needed to keep Dooku away from Anakin. He knew about the special training Anakin had with Windu, and believed now that it had created a shield of the dark side from Anakin, because he had trained in Vapad for around 5 years, and as a result, he was no longer corruptible from the dark side. Yes, he could use Padme, but he wasn't sure that would help Anakin join his side, rather could turn him against him. Anakin and Windu fought together in the Clone War. They were lead generals in the Order, and when paired together, they were unstoppable. They led one pivotal mission together, where they attempted to capture the key separatist stronghold of Cato Nemoidia. The ground forces broke through into the central city, and they felt it through the Force that Dooku was here. Windu led the clones, whilst Anakin went for Dooku. He tracked them trying to escape, and caught the separatist leader right before he got onto his ship. Anakin jumped and landed on the boarding platform, and ignited his amethyst blade, as Dooku ignited his crimson in response. They rushed towards each other. Dooku was a skilled duelist, would be top 5 in the galaxy. However, the difference between them quickly became obvious, as Anakin activated his Vapad and used Dooku's own dark side against him. Dooku was terrified, as he realized with each extra second that passed, Anakin's power continued to grow. He attempted to create a distraction, slashing his blade to create a cloud of dust as he ran. But Anakin predicted the move, and gripped Dooku with the Force and pulled him back, slashing and cutting off his arm and placing him under arrest. Meanwhile, Windu won the surrounding battle, and the Republic was victorious. Anakin is cheered as he walks through the Jedi Temple with Dooku in handcuffs, and he knows he has done it. He has taken a large step towards the end of the war. Dooku is taken directly to the Jedi's prison cell, and the leader of the Separatists is put in chains. Anakin celebrates with Padme for a bit, until he met with Windu later that day at the temple. The Master congratulated Anakin on his victory, that his mastery of Vapad is unmatched. Obi-Wan and Yoda join them, as Windu tell Anakin they have something to tell him. They tell Skywalker everything they know about Darth Sidious, that they believe he is Dooku's master, has orchestrated the Clone War and played both sides of it from the beginning. Actually the person behind the creation of the clone army. Anakin's eyes went wide in disbelief as Windu told him, with his capture of Dooku, they now have a vital link to understanding the identity of Darth Sidious. But Anakin tells them, even if they interrogate Dooku, he won't say anything, and they won't be able to probe into his mind because of how strong he is in the Force. But Windu and Yoda look at each other, and they tell Anakin they think they have an idea. Obi-Wan tells him that they believe if he and Windu work together, they can overcome Dooku's mental barrier with the Force, but only through the use of their Vapad. Dooku's mental defenses stem from the dark side, but in theory, they can turn this against him with his Vapad, to search his mind for the true identity of Darth Sidious. Anakin looks at Windu, telling him it sounds good in theory, but it might be harder than they think. But Windu puts his hand on Anakin's shoulder and tells him he believes he's up to the challenge. However, they need to do this now, before the Senate take custody of Dooku, as they believe Sidious is a high-ranking member of the Senate or Republic, and likely won't allow the Jedi to have Dooku for long. Anakin and Windu go into Dooku's cell, as the Sith tells the Jedi he won't talk, there's nothing new they can learn from him. But Anakin stands in front of Dooku and tells him he won't have a choice. Both Anakin and Windu reach out with their hands and activate their Vapad. They connect to Dooku's mind and feel the resistance, the barrier in the Force that Dooku has in place. Dooku starts to wriggle in pain as the Jedi attempt to make their way in, but he believes they won't stand a chance. However, he was mistaken. Together the Jedi start harnessing the power from Dooku's mental barrier and turn it back on him, as it now powers their mind probe. They're getting close, as Dooku's audibly in pain now, but with one almighty push, they break through the barrier and enter Dooku's memories. They begin searching, looking for the answers they seek, as they both see it at the exact same time. They see Darth Sidious unmasked to reveal his identity as Chancellor Palpatine. They exit the mind probe, as Dooku collapses unconscious, as Mace and Anakin look at each other, both in awe at the truth they have just uncovered, and they rush to the council chambers immediately. The council couldn't believe it, as Kenobi continually asked them if they were sure, but Anakin continued recounting the memories he saw inside Dooku, Palpatine training him in the dark side, both unmasked here in the industrial region on Coruscant. It was true, Sidious really was Chancellor Palpatine. Windu turns to Yoda and asks the Master what they should do. Kiadi interrupts and tells them they have to go arrest him now, but Windu responds, telling him it's not going to be that easy. Palpatine is still the Chancellor, and there's a lot of political grey area that they need to overcome if they arrest Palpatine now. The Jedi will be seen as attempting to take over the Republic for themselves. They need to arrest Palpatine with proof, and they can't just go barging into his office, as he will likely have a plan for this. Yoda looks at their schedule, and Palpatine has a meeting with them the following morning in the Jedi Temple to discuss Dooku's capture, and Yoda tells them that they will use that opportunity to arrest Palpatine, but by then, they must have all the evidence they need. Yoda sends Ki-Adi-Mundi to the industrial region on Coruscant, Kit Fisto to Sereno, to Dooku's palace, and Plo Koon to Kamino to bring Nala's aid to the Senate, as Windu and Anakin saw in Dooku's memories that the Sith had been working with the Kaminoans. They all do this, and know they have under 24 hours to gather the evidence they need. The following morning, Palpatine enters the Jedi Temple for his scheduled meeting. He's greeted by Anakin at the entrance and congratulates him on his capture of Dooku, single-handedly bringing the Clone War closer to its end. Anakin escorts him through the halls, as Palpatine makes a comment to him that now the Council should make him a Jedi Master, and if they don't, it'll be yet another mistake by the Council. Anakin tried to hide his smirk. Palpatine was making his manipulations extremely obvious. They're joined by Yoda, Windu, Plo Koon, and Kit Fisto as they continue walking through the temple corridors. However, as they continue, Palpatine senses something is wrong. The Jedi aren't directing him to Dooku, but rather they're heading towards a dead end. Palpatine can't be 100% sure of it. He can't risk reaching out with the Force here, as no doubt he'll be sensed, but his raw innate intuition makes him believe something is wrong. They turn a corner to see Obi-Wan, Shak Ti, and Saisi Tin, which confirms to Palpatine he's been tricked and he acts in a flash. He moved with the speed of the Force, igniting his blade at an insane speed to slash at the two Jedi ahead of him, Plo Koon and Kit Fisto. He connected and turns to blast lightning at Yoda, Windu, and Anakin, but they block with a Force shield, causing an explosion that sends Palpatine flying backward. He landed in front of Kenobi and Kola, who had their blades ignited, as Palpatine was trapped between the Jedi. He conjured a Sith spell, as lightning sparked from his fingertips and threw it at the ground, plunging the room into darkness. He darted with the Force past the Jedi, going for the exit. However, Anakin was fast, and he sensed the move from Palpatine. Anakin jumped and reached out with his hand and gripped Palpatine by the ankle and threw him back against the side wall. The black smoke had disappeared now, as Palpatine lay slumped on the floor, looking up as the 5 council members standing over him. He went to act. He still had a few tricks up his sleeve. However, the masters there reached out with the Force to hold Palpatine in place, to put Force cuffs on him, and he was under arrest. In the hours following, the Jedi presented all evidence and proof they had gathered of Palpatine's treachery against the Republic, as well as him being the Sith Lord and working directly with Count Dooku and the Kaminoans. The Jedi were praised for their efforts in the Senate, and Palpatine is removed as Chancellor of the Republic. Over the following weeks, this turned a massive tide in the war. The Separatists were now in control by Grievous. However, the Separatist movement had lost all support now, as worlds started seceding back to the Republic, since Palpatine and Dooku's alliance was revealed. It took only a week until the Separatist Council was captured and arrested, as Grievous, alongside his invisible hand, and the entire fleet was destroyed. The war was over, only 2 years long in this timeline, thanks to Anakin's heroics, and the galaxy celebrated. After the war was concluded in the Senate, the Council met. Anakin was invited, as he stood in the center of the chamber. Windu stood and turned to the entire council, telling everyone that Anakin stands before them, not merely a hero of this war, but as proof that mastery of the Force begins with master of the self. Anakin is the epitome of what a true Jedi Master should represent, and no doubt is the future of this very order. The council once feared what Anakin might become, but he now stands before them, the epitome of what they hope all Jedi come to be. He stepped forward and announced, by the right of the council, by the will of the Force and unanimous decision of the council, Anakin Skywalker is now granted the rank of Jedi Master, and hereby given a permanent seat on the Jedi Council. Anakin bowed, not in triumph, but in humility. He sat, looked at Obi-Wan, who was smiling back, and Anakin was excited to serve the Jedi Order for the rest of his life. That night he went home to Padme, who was waiting for him, barefoot on the polished floor, looking out across Coruscant, the city lights painting gold across her face. She smiled when she saw him, and congratulated Anakin on his new rank and role in the Order. They spoke of little that evening. No war, no politics, no prophecy. They shared a quiet meal, soft laughter, and later Padme took his hand and guided it gently to her stomach. She muttered his name, Anakin, and told him they were going to have a child. Anakin felt the Force stir with warmth inside of him. He pulled her into his arms, resting his forehead against hers. For so long, the future had been something to fear, but tonight, as Coruscant shimmered below, and Padme's heartbeat echoed his own, Anakin truly believed the future was looking bright.
Hey everyone, really quick, for the entire month of January at Fantasy Sabers, we are giving away a free negotiator deluxe saber with every order over $250. Thanks again, and I'll leave a link in the description below.